NBA stars are brave enough to dunk over 7-footers and shoot logo buzzer beaters, but show them a pile of statues or some pigeons and they'll fast break in the opposite direction. These are NBA players' biggest fears. Starting our list with a bang, we introduce a player with a truly unique fear, Damian Lillard. Mr. Dame Time himself can sink a three-pointer with seconds left, but bring him face to face with a statue of a historical figure and you'll see him ducking for cover. The fear began in college at Weber State on a trip to a wax museum. Dame entered a room full of historical figures and felt like he'd been walking into a living nightmare. Lincoln, MLK, Jesus, you name it, it gives him the creeps. Dame's more brave shooting a game winner from the logo than he is standing next to a wax figure of Abraham Lincoln. Just when you thought statues were Dame's only kryptonite, enter needles. Yes, needles are the real MVPs of his phobia. After destroying the Rockets by an incredible 71 points, the NBA figured, why not celebrate with a random drug test? Ah, the sweet irony. Lillard stared at the needle like it was the last shot of a tied playoff game, whispering to himself, are y'all serious? From Damian Lillard's unusual fear of statues, let's make a splash and dive into another fear, this time featuring the larger-than-life Shaquille O'Neal. Yes, the same man who would elbow his way through a wall of 7-footers like they were inflatable pool toys has a rather unexpected phobia. Sharks. To conquer this fear, Shaq decided to dive in and face it. He stepped into a shark cage and descended into the ocean, which is the underwater version of a Defensive Player of the Year ceremony for him. Just as he started to feel like the king of Atlantis, a real shark appeared. We haven't seen Shaq bolt that fast since someone mentioned free throw practice. Now, the big man is known for his grit. He stood at the cage's edge, took a deep breath, and probably thought, if I can rap, act, and be a sports analyst, I can do this. He was all set to take the plunge again. Then he changed his mind. He stepped onto the boat and never looked back. Yep, in the matchup of Shaq versus Sharks, the Sharks won, leaving Shaq to ponder his next adventure, preferably one on dry land. Being scared of sharks is one thing, but let's shift the spotlight to something you wouldn't expect. Pigeons. Yes, you read that right. It turns out some NBA players are feather phobic. Flash Wade, a man known for clutch shots and championship bling, freezes up around birds. He once saw a swarm of birds leaving the area, only then to turn around and fly directly at him. Now, every time he sees birds in the distance, he's convinced they're scheming some kind of airborne ambush. But D-Wade isn't alone in his fear of birds. Next up we have Trae Young. When it comes to Ice Trae, his ball handling skills may be ice cold, but his courage melts around birds. One of his high school bullies was ambushed by a gang of angry pigeons. Since then, Trae's views of beaks and feathers has been, well, skeptical. Even the NBA fans, ever so supportive, now enjoy waving bird-themed place cards at games just to mess with him. But the poetic justice for Trae is rich. Out of all the NBA teams, he lands with the Hawks. It's like life glanced at his fears, chuckled, and said, challenge accepted. So if you see this guy looking a bit shaky on the court, don't assume he missed his energy drink. There could be a lone pigeon in the rafters, watching Trae's every move, ready to attack. Some players are born with their fears, but Donovan Mitchell acquired his the hard way, through a near-death experience on a plane. The NBA schedule is exhausting, with players catching more flights than alley-oops, but one time Donovan Mitchell's standard flight escalated into a full-blown crisis. Just minutes into the air, the plane began to shudder, putting the Utah Jazz players into a state of panic. A single bird had sabotaged an engine, forcing an emergency landing. Donovan Mitchell, known for his tough dog mentality on the court, was scared for his life. But we all know somewhere Trae Young and D-Wade were probably nodding knowingly, told you birds were trouble. So next time if you notice Donovan Mitchell gripping his armrest on a team flight, don't assume he's worried about the opposing defense. Ever since a bird went full kamikaze and nearly turned his flight into an airborne disaster, Mitchell's got more in his hands than just three-pointers every time he steps on a plane. If you thought Donovan Mitchell's airborne scare was intense, wait until you hear about Jimmy Butler's close call. He may be fearless when going toe-to-toe with the NBA giants, but put him near a swimming pool and suddenly he's in over his head. Literally. Jimmy Butler is mortally afraid of water. Not the, oh no, I'll mess up my hair kind of fear, but the, this is how I meet my maker level of fear. When ESPN caught wind of Jimmy's water phobia, they knew they had the makings of TV gold. So, they decided Jimmy would face his fears head-on by kayaking. That's right, the same Jimmy who'd rather dodge 7-foot centers than droplets of water was now getting a crash course on paddling. Dressed in not one but two life jackets, because let's be honest, he's not exactly Michael Phelps, Jimmy took to the kayak like a captain. And then, just as Jimmy was nearing the safety of the shore, his kayak pulled a 180 on him, flipping in the water that barely reached his knees. You would have thought he was in the middle of the Atlantic with the way he hit those high notes, rivaling Mariah Carey in a vocal duel. So, when you see Jimmy Butler dominating on the hardwood, just remember, everyone has their Achilles heel. For Jimmy, it's not towering centers or crafty guards, it's a body of water deeper than a puddle. To wrap things up, let's get serious for a second. Unlike Jimmy Butler, the basketball god Michael Jordan also had a close call with water that left him traumatized. When he was just a kid, he witnessed a terrifying event that marked him for life. His best friend was swallowed up by the ocean's unforgiving current. Jordan tried to be the hero, gripping his friend's hand to pull him back, but the ocean was just too strong, and he had to make a gut-wrenching decision to let go, rather than be pulled under himself. During his youth, MJ faced another close call with water, this time away from the ocean and at a baseball camp. At 11 years old, he found himself in a life-threatening situation where he nearly drowned. In a fortunate turn of events, an alert individual noticed him struggling and pulled him out of the water just in the nick of time, saving him from becoming a tragic statistic. As if those experiences weren't traumatic enough, life dealt Jordan with another watery blow during his college days. A flood claimed the life of his girlfriend at the time. It's no wonder that Jordan has a strict no swimming policy and only boards boats that could practically qualify as mini cruise ships. He bought an $80 million yacht that spans 230 feet, serving almost as a floating fortress built to keep the water at arm's length. So while you may have been the fearless player to ever play the game, water remains the one opponent his airness couldn't defeat. Thanks for watching. Share your strange fears in the comments below. No judgment here. We've all got our hangups. Until next time, goodbye.